New images from NASA show the foundation of a pyramid-like structure on Mars. It's incredible how many suspicious structures we can see in these and other images. Even Elon Musk believes that we urgently need to send astronauts to Mars to investigate the controversial finds. Will we then come across the first real traces of an ancient civilization on Mars? A mysterious image from Mars is causing a stir again. Between 1996 and 2006, NASA's Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft sent more than 200,000 images to Earth. Among them are some explosive shots. One of the images shows a square formation reminiscent of the foundation of a building. Anyone who has ever been to an ancient city of the Romans, Greeks, or other lost civilizations is familiar with such structures on Mars. Formations like this resemble a miracle because Mars, supposedly barren desert planet, and completely unsuitable for life. Scientists at Arizona State University measured the structure exactly, and computer programs then calculated the probability of a natural structure. Nature can create similar formations, and algorithms are designed to determine whether the origin of this structure is natural or artificial. Structures created by living things usually show a striking abundance of right angles and exact measurements, while nature is more chaotic. Astrologists also examine every rock in the area surrounding the formation. Based on this data, scientists then want to reconstruct the circumstances that created the formation. There is a heated debate on the internet as to whether NASA would withhold the results from us if it were to be proven that a life form was at work here. Time and again, photos from Mars reach us that cause a stir. In the 1970s, it was images like the Mars face or the pointed Mars pyramids that sparked heated discussions. The claims of some ufologists that there must have been life on Mars or still is have been repeatedly refuted by NASA. But to this day, new images keep popping up that make us believe that mysterious things are going on the red planet. In view of the latest photos of the Martian pyramid, even SpaceX founder Elon Musk has now joined the discussion. The man who wants to colonize Mars publicly stated we should send astronauts to Mars to investigate. Although Musk is pushing ahead with his plans to send humans to Mars on a daily basis, it will be years before humans set foot on Mars for the first time. Until then, we can only study from afar. Did you know how many organic or technically looking structures scientists and amateur astronomers have found on Mars? Images like these often don't make it into the popular media. They are published on NASA's websites, but by and large, they are only discussed by scientists. One might get the impression that NASA is annoyed by all the discussions about aliens and UFOs on Mars. Some argue with scientifically unprofessional claims, agitation, and fear-mongering, while others say that ordinary people also have a right to know what is really happening on Mars. Look at these photos. Do you also immediately think of a UFO buried in Martian dust? The structure really looks suspicious, but they are of natural origin. These shapes, which look like polished metal, are frozen Martian dunes. On Mars, dunes are not made of fine coarse sand like they are here but often of volcanic basalt dust, which is strangely shaped by the thin Martian wind. Extreme temperature fluctuations and the influence of frozen carbon dioxide create dry ice, which forms bizarre smooth structures that look like artificial metal. The fact that we see a UFO here is attributed by scientists to an effect known as pareidolia. The brain tends to see familiar images in random formations. The Martian face and other structures on Mars have been explained in this way. The Martian face was actually debunked in 2001. Images from the Mars Global Surveyor probe showed the formation in significantly higher resolution than the original Viking images from the 1970s. While the face appeared impressively human in the old images due to the light and shadow effects, the new images revealed a natural hill structure without recognizable facial features. The supposed eyes, mouth, and nose were nothing more than the result of shadows and a consequence of the poor image quality at the time. The DNM pyramid made by aliens in the 1980s, former NASA consultant Richard C. Hoagland claimed that a structure in the Cydonia region clearly bears technological signatures. Hoagland measured the so-called DNM pyramid and found golden sections, right triangles, and mathematical ratios such as pi. Again, the Mars face was involved because the distances between the face and the DNM pyramid showed similar anomalies to the arrangement of the pyramids of Giza. According to Hoagland, the exact distances and the accumulation of mathematical peculiarities could not be a coincidence. Hoagland postulated that the extraordinary pentagonal structure could indicate a lost extraterrestrial civilization. In the 1980s, This was far more fantastic than it is today. At that time, not nearly as many images of Mars were available. We have since sent dozens of probes and rovers to Mars and supposedly found no real organic structures and no real evidence of life, only pareidolia. In the 80s, the mystery surrounding Mars was even greater. People were partially afraid of Martians, and the rumors that our neighboring planet was, or at least once was, inhabited did not subside. There were books that claimed that the arrangement in the Cydonia landscape was even a coded message. With the high-resolution images of the Mars Global Surveyor and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, many of these theories were refuted. At the same time, however, another finding emerged, and this fueled the discussions again. Researchers found that Mars probably still had a thin atmosphere several 100 million years ago. Simulations showed a Mars with Earth-like weather, with water oceans, and possibly vegetation. Scientists could not rule out the possibility that Mars was inhabited by living creatures at these times. Unfortunately, it's impossible to prove that there were animals or human-owned creatures on Mars so many years later and from such a distance. If we do have scientists on Mars one day, excavations could show whether traces of life are hidden in the depths of the Martian sand. The relics of our dinosaurs are usually buried several meters deep in sand and soil more than 60 million years after their disappearance. So on Mars, we would have to dig to a similar depth to find traces of earlier life forms. What really happened to Mars? Let's beam ourselves back to a time when Mars was still a young planet and possibly resembled the early Earth. 4 billion years ago, Mars probably still had a magnetic core and thus a dense atmosphere. It has since been proven several times that there was water on Mars. Mars stores so much frozen water at its poles and in deeper layers today that it could fill oceans similar to Earth. Although experts do not describe the proximity to the Sun as ideal for the emergence of life, it is not impossible. Mars lies in the outer region of the so-called habitable zone. Although experts do not describe the proximity to the Sun as ideal for the emergence of life, it is not impossible. Mars lies in the outer region of the so-called habitable zone. It was always a bit darker and colder on Mars than on Earth, though we know from our own world that there is life that is perfectly adapted to conditions like these. We have life at the icy poles, and we find bizarre life forms even in the deepest and coldest caves, where sunlight never shines. Over the course of millions of years, Mars took a different path from Earth. While our planet retained its atmosphere and thus the perfect magnetic shield against cosmic winds, Mars lost its magnetic core. Without the protective magnetic field, the solar wind was able to gradually erode Mars's atmosphere. With it, most of the water disappeared, either into space or into frozen reservoirs below the surface. If there was any life, it died out in the course of these upheavals. It's highly likely that our Earth will also experience a desertification similar to that of Mars in the course of its further development. In our case, temperatures will change organic life. If we have more heat and deserts, life forms such as reptiles, snakes, and dry plants will dominate. And perhaps humans will also survive in some form, if they manage to adapt to the increasingly violent conditions. Today, Mars is almost 100% a dry, hostile desert. Violent winds blow storms around the entire planet. The swirling sand causes incredible erosion. Even Elon Musk fears these winds. Future Martian explorers and settlers would most likely have to live in dwellings half underground. Measured against the entire solar system, the living conditions on Mars are the most Earth-like. For this reason, Elon Musk and NASA have set their sights on this planet. First, we want to know whether our species can survive outside the Earth. No one yet knows whether this adventure will succeed. We don't know to what extent we humans depend on the Earth's magnetic field and climate. Doctors are unsure whether the human body would function properly on another planet. In particular, blood pressure, metabolism, and adaptation to a different gravity are questionable. The mental health of Martian settlers is also uncertain. The connections between Earth rhythms such as day and night, the seasons, nature, and the human psyche have hardly been researched so far. On Mars, humans could be exposed to extreme psychological stress simply due to the absence of these natural environmental stimuli. Some researchers claim that Mars could be transformed back into an Earth-like green world through clever geoforming by creating an artificial greenhouse effect. It should be possible to generate a stable atmosphere. Then rising temperatures would turn the water into liquid again. If the pressure is also right, Mars would be able to retain water on its surface. Imagine how a barren desert world could be transformed back into a green paradise. Crazy, isn't it? Less utopian. Researchers caution against ideas like these. They say claims that Mars was once a life-friendly planet are pure superstition. Mars could never have been truly green. Perhaps its atmosphere was too thin from the start. Its water was only a brief episode before it evaporated or froze. What remains is a dead and potentially dangerous planet, especially if people think of it as a potential alternative for a new home. Subscribe now, the best videos are yet to come.